Speaking of things that might kill you, chewingas.
Chewingas.
We got the chewingas are back.
This is my third point. Yes. So speaking of Tomb of Annihilation, these creatures, little elemental spirits, first appeared in Tomb of Annihilation. These creatures, like most elementals, are neutral. They don't really have the same sense of good and evil morality that humans do. So they are just as likely to tweak your nose as they are to give you a gift. Sometimes being pelted by a snowball thrown by a chewinga is both a trick and a treat, as you will find yourself given a supernatural gift by them after being pelted. They're adorably cute. And they also come with a set of brand new chewinga charms that kind of build off rules from the Dungeon Master's Guide, little supernatural boons that their elemental nature can grant you. And these guys appear in the starting quests a lot. You know, they're fairly weak little things, all said and done, but they have fun little powers that add a sort of levity to this dark, grim, isolating adventure.
It's a good point about those boons, you know, those little charms, because I do feel like, and we're going to get to this point later, I feel like this is the player's adventure right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. It is designed to be about your players.
Yeah.
And you have a hook right from the start of this adventure. Like, this is yours. This is why, like, I would make a character, I mean, unforgivable, I know. Me not playing Avern. Playing another character just for this book because I'm so curious what they become at the end of this.
Yes.
And it makes me really wonder, I'm like, where does he end up at the end? Like, whoever.
I think we just have to move on to our fourth point, which is the dark character secrets after that. This is an awesome book to start fresh with. Yeah. I mean, you want to start a new first level character, this is the adventure to do it with. Because we saw this idea kind of gently pushed in Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus with some dark secrets, but I think this book kind of apotheosizes it. You have a deck of cards. In the digital version, you can print it out and stuff, that you can draw a secret from. And this ranges from quirky, like you're a big Dritz fan and you have a shard of his cloak.
It's
that you
one
keep
of my
with you
favorite
as a lucky
ones.
Charm.
It's
or you
so silly.
Or it goes all the way to you have a slod tadpole growing inside you, chest burster style, and at a certain point that thing will go and burst out of you,
which means you don't know who the other players, what they drew.
Yes,
and I adore it.
And like, it's their prerogative. They could tell you at any time, or not.
It's got a little bit of the the haunted that game. I can't believe I'm forgetting it right now. But like one of you might be the killer. You can find out. Betrayal. Shelley's going to kill me. Shelley Mazanoble. And by the way, also, Kate Irwin is a genius. She is so great about art direction. Not enough things could be said about Kate. Also one of the nicest human beings you will ever meet.
Yes, indeed.
In your entire life.
Yes, indeed.
You don't know how people like that happen. They're just like pure joy. But it's the dark secrets that like I'm instantly hooked. That's why I want to play a new character in this environment, because I mean you could get some really like you said, that scale, and James is not kidding. It starts with I'm a big Dritz fan to like, okay, everything that we know about whatever is completely wrong.
Yeah.
So it's very fun and it's very exciting, I think, for the DM to watch the players have these secrets that they try like keep from each other. And it adds to that paranoia.
This sort of thing that I would expect from a DM running a homebrew adventure, right? Where they have this kind of intimate connection. They work hand in hand with their players to develop secrets that link the players to the campaign itself. This is not quite so bespoke, but it's a great starting point. It goes above and beyond what other D&D adventures do in making sure that your characters have something that intrinsically ties them to the world. And I wrote the Hero Chronicle for Wildemount. I'm all about intrinsic character ties to the world. If there's one thing I love in D&D, it's when the party gets to go, oh, that was part of their story this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love these secrets.
I do like the randomized stuff too, because as smart as we always think we are, and I always think I'm smart. It is nice to have the randomization. Like my first character is a character that was just like, we rolled all the way down. That's your character. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm playing a ranger. There is a charm to that. Like if you're looking to like know a little bit about your backstory and you fill in the gaps quite quick, that randomization is rather lovely.
Yeah.
To get. So the Dark Secrets, I'm completely in love. I know I'm not going to get the one I want if I have someone run this for me. I may force you to run it for me.
You want to be the Drist fan, right?
Yeah. So much don't. It's not that I'm not a Drist fan, but I know it's what I'm going to get.
Right.
It's kind of like I always have like really high dexterity, but I don't know a stealth check that I haven't failed in my entire career.
Just my luck. Hey, speaking of stuff I know you'll love, Todd.
Yeah.
The fifth thing I want to talk about is the crashed Mind Flayer spacecraft that is found out in the ice. Like I said, some 100 pages into the book, you move from 10 Towns into the wastes of Icewind Dale. And there are a number of quest hooks for every single point of interest out in the ice. And it's up there on screen now. That's a map of the Id Ascendant, a Mind Flayer nautiloid, which you may have seen in trailers for Baldur's Gate 3 lately. The Nautilus-like semi-organic ships that swoop in and grab people.
So well realized, by the way.
Yes.
Well realized. Like I have to admit, like I never could completely conceive of like what the Mind Flayer Githyanki war must look like. And then I saw this, I'm like, okay, everything makes sense.
Yeah. Like on that map, you can see the tentacles bursting forth from the front of this ship. The back is shaped like a Nautilus shell, and the front has these 4 sort of biomechanical, biomagical tentacles that can just reach down and touch a person and warp them into a Cerimorphosis pod inside the ship, where they can be implanted with a Mind Flayer tadpole that will transform them into a hideous creature. But the creatures of the Id Ascendant are not normal Mind Flayers. They are odd little ducks called Gnome Ceremorphs and Gnome Squidlings, who Todd and Megan had a hand in creating the look for. Very cute, but very deadly.
This is a very good example of the kindness of Chris Perkins, because this is something that got away. I had tweeted the history of this. I had briefly tweeted, because I like to think of weird things. I'm like, hey, do Gnome Flayer, if a gnome gets Cerimorphous, do they turn into like just a tiny little Mind Flayer? Wouldn't that be adorable? And so that got a lot of traction. My wife then chimed in that she wanted one with really long tendrils that were that their tendrils were so long that they walked on them, and they had like little chibi body, and their feet didn't even touch the ground, which was brilliant. And then she drew something, and then Max Dunbar drew something, and then Richard Witters drew something based off what Megan drew, and it was just like this wonderful, weird Twitter experience of we ended up with these 2 very cute and horrifying creatures, and I guilted Chris Perkins in putting them in the book.
Yeah,
put them right on the spot. While we were talking about Descendant to Avernus and talking about how ugly and cute the chickens,
the abyssal chickens
are, and the ugly cute has a long way, and it makes this little segment, we haven't given away too much, it is charming and weird and strange. I can't wait to run, honestly, Megan through this particular adventure. It will be, how you don't get to often face your own nightmares. Right?
I think these guys raise a very interesting point about kind of the nature of D&D adventures, is that like D&D adventures, this one in particular, can be incredibly dark, and they can handle very unpleasant subject matter at certain points. Always have a session 0 with your players, make sure you know what you're about. But also any adventure that delves into hideous creatures and dark secrets necessitates little moments of levity. And this adventure provides them, I think, in an appropriate quantity. Every bit of darkness is balanced by a little glimmer of light. And right, D&D is a place to have fun with your friends. Your friends will bring the jokes no matter what. These moments of levity aren't necessarily, slapstick, ha funny, but they're little bits of like Velcro almost that any player would latch onto and make an offhand joke, and suddenly the entire table's laughing. You've forgotten about the horror. And then all of a sudden the DM can be like, yes, and then you feel a sliver of psychic energy curling into your mind. They're all like, oh, crap, right. We're dealing with mind flayers again. Yeah.
And that's the key to a lot of horror, is you do have to eventually get to this point where someone has to kind of speak on behalf of the audience, right? Like, like something so horrifying that you have to laugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You need those breaks. I think probably more so in role playing, and certainly D&D kind of brings the comedy. It's very hard, I think, to maintain a kind of consistently dark campaign. And I don't know that I would want that.
No.
I think this is a very fun series of adventures that are certainly have a lot of horror, but I think it's kind of like a celebration of horror.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very joyous in that. So it could seem like this is like, oh my God, this is going to be dark and evil and terrible. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but in a fun way.
Speaking of which, there's an item in this adventure, a legendary scroll that brings the existential horror and the unbelievable comedy all at once. And it is the scroll of Tarrasque summoning.
Oh my God.
This is a legendary scroll, very difficult to find, hidden within a place so ancient and dark that no one would ever be able to penetrate its depths. But if you are a spellcaster who reads from this scroll, you can summon the Tarrasque to any point within a mile of you. And that it's the Tarrasque. It's the CR30 Tarrasque. And it doesn't go away after an hour. It goes away when it hits 0 hit points. And it's just going to rampage like the Tarrasque does, causing untold devastation.
I love this because anyone who's getting out of this adventure and takes this with them. Yeah. Oh boy. I don't know. I mean, I feel like also you've got like a giant mark on you, right? Like some devil, somebody knows you've got it. It also explains why this thing's like teleporting around the multiverse as well in a fun kind of way. I certainly treat primordials like this sometimes. That's why I kind of like about it. Like Lauren Urban, our fantastic community manager, plays a character named Orkara Eldrex, and she has a book of the Phoenix that she uses to summon the Phoenix. Well, the Phoenix kind of wants to burn everything. And so for about an hour period of time, it will do so. It will destroy, it will level a world. So use at great caution. So I love the idea that there's this horrible nuclear like event just sitting around that you can find in this adventure. It's lovely.
It'll solve your problems.
It will.
And create some other ones.
It'll put you on a list.
Yeah. Yeah. This adventure pits you up against a god. I mean, if you drop a Tarrasque on her, I mean, Oriole the Frostmaiden might not be a problem anymore, but now you've got a Tarrasque running around Icewind Dale.
And you're the guy who did it.
Yeah, imagine if anyone else found out about that.
Yeah, and that's going to come up. Even if you survive, even when you die, if your character dies at 90, it's probably going to come up. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, you did summon a Tarrasque, so sorry. You're not getting into the halls of Celestia. So we got some craziness also. I'll tell you about like high level stuff. We got a new 9th level spell.
Yes.
It's mean.
This adventure doesn't go to 17th level when your spellcaster would be able to use such a spell like this, but imagine continuing your characters after all of this is over. We've got a spell called Blade of Disaster that allows a powerful spellcaster to summon a weapon, perhaps, but this is a weapon created by a tear in space-time. You have opened an interplanar rift that functions much like a blade. You can hold onto it with your hand using magic to protect yourself, or you can move it with your mind to cause it to swing wildly and tear through creatures. It can pass through any barrier. It deals devastating critical hits with ruthless frequency. It's basically like a spell of summon Vorpal Sword, except you're de-atomizing your enemies as you pass this blade through them. Can we put that Claudio Pozas art back up again? It just looks so cool.
Good. It's so good, and I think we've all kind of fantasized about that type of sword that is a rift in reality.
Yeah,
and the concept, because what's the sharpest thing? Well, nothing. You know, like the separation between time and space. It's like when you watch everyone jump into a portal, and you're like, don't jump in like sideways. I have a fear of it. Like in my brain, when I watch it in movies, I get a little cringed out when I see someone go through a portal, because I'm like, don't hit the wrong side.
Yeah. It's a very cool spell.
It's not a rational fear, but it's a fear.
Yeah, I mean, this adventure, it ends with you delving into the ruins of a civilization whose magic went beyond 9th level spells. Imagine the sort of stuff that you could find there.
Yeah, and again, this is what I like. This is what I continue to love about this adventure, is I feel like it's an adventure. I did this thing. And this is how I often feel about like Ravenloft as well, is we made it out. That is like a feather in your cap. You'll never forget that.
Yeah.
You know? If you get through this, you got weird backstory already, and you faced a god. Maybe you talked to some gnome squidlings. Like, you've been through things. You feel like you may have further adventures because, okay, yeah, maybe you summoned a Trask. Maybe someone's angry at you now. A new 9th level spell you can like look forward to. I think that's really great adventure design to get items you cannot yet use.
This adventure is beautifully self-contained.
Yeah,
it tells a complete and coherent story, but it also does a very good job of spinning out threads into the future if you want to pull upon them.